This is Scott Sanchez, Rad Fondo BBQ, brisket cook. Today I'm going to be cooking for you a Costco Prime brisket, 18 pounds. I'm going to trim it up kind of like I would do for a competition, and hopefully you find this useful and you can use it for your own cooks. All right. First thing I'm going to do is take this sucker out of the bag. I like to open this up on the fat side just so I don't slash up the face of the meat. And usually there's lots of liquid in here, so I like to have some paper towels around so you can see that. I try to kind of wipe up the excess so that I don't make too big a mess. Fortunately, this guy's got a nice big slash in it from the butcher, which you don't usually get with the Wagyus, but with these primes you never know. So I have my own kind of approach on how I like to tackle these briskets, and usually I'm just trying to get to a certain look. So I'll kind of attack them in different ways. This one, the butcher was kind enough to take off the fat. Hopefully that's all point meat and we didn't ruin our flat. So not much fat cap on here. What I'm gonna do is I like to take off the sides, a little bit on the front, get rid of some of that kind of browned up meat, so that I have a nice clean brisket to work with. My goal on the side is I'm trying to expose this line that comes here between the flat and the point. I have an idea where these meats come together, so I like to take that off, and I know this is all going to come off anyway, so I kind of start chipping away and trying to get an idea of how this thing looks. My job on the team is brisket, so it's kind of all I do, and it is something I probably cook 50 times a year, I'd say, if I had to guess. So I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I do cook them a lot, which means I got to trim them a lot. So I just like to kind of start carving this thing away. And like I said, each brisket I kind of attack differently. You're going to find the butchers probably do this a much better job than I do. But I'm kind of the end justifies the means. So my goal is to kind of get it so I can expose as much of the meat so that I can kind of work around the brisket and get an idea of what I'm dealing with. So try to get all of this ancillary fat off. Give me some space to see what kind of meat we have here. And just kind of keep carving this thing out. I kind of know the point meat sits right under here, so I'll just kind of keep scalloping this out. And a lot of what I'm doing, you'll see what I'll do as I flip it, is trying to get as much of this fat off the point. So when I start to do the point trim, I don't really have that much left to do. A lot of it's done. So, like I said, we'll just kind of keep carving away at this guy. Yes, you're not supposed to carve or slice towards yourself. You didn't see that. We'll just keep kind of scalloping this away and get this guy kind of dialed in. So some of this I'll wait until I separate the two meats, which you'll see if you've never done that before. what I mean there is I like to separate the flat, which is here, from the point, which is this side. So it's really two muscles. And I'm just trying to get a good view of these two muscles and what's keeping them together so that I can have a nice view of the working area as I'm attacking it. So usually I'll just kind of start notching into this piece here, trying to get into this section of the point. And you'll see I try to kind of make this part of the point a shelf as I'm carving this out. And it's just something, the way somebody really taught me this. I just try to kind of level it out as I go so that I don't have much work to do when I'm done. On this side, it's usually pretty level. I cook the point with the intent to have burnt ends, but we rarely turn them in. That's just what we do. I'm not saying that I should recommend that to everyone, because you probably need to learn how to cook them. I feel like I do make good burnt ends. I'm just afraid to put them in the box right now. So what I'm trying to do here is follow this fat line. So as I kind of cut this stuff out, I'll start seeing where the meat kind of ends. I'm trying to just stay in here and stay out of the flat, so that for me, the money part of this brisket is in the flat. So I will sacrifice some of the point so that I can make sure that I have some good product to use for the judges. And you can kind of see this is the part where it gets a little more tricky, because it's hard to see, you know, so you can see how thin this line gets. So I'm just trying to kind of stay in there. You can see this guy's already opened up, so I know that's done. And usually what I'll do is I'll just notch that off. And the point now, basically what I'm going to do is just kind of clean this up. Get rid of the thin stuff. So that, because most of that stuff burns up. But you can see, as I showed you before, because I kind of cleaned this up as I was trimming it before I separated the two, a lot of this work's done. This guy's going to be kept for home, so I'm going to leave this point kind of in this shape. Normally what I would do is I kind of box this off and square up these edges and try to make it a little more like a flat shelf. So if I was making burnt ends, I would have a nice even surface. So I'll throw this. Foil trays are great. Put that in here. You can see that this butcher was not very kind. Nice big slash all over this flat, which is a bummer. But fortunately we're not at a competition, and this is not a brisket we would have to turn in. It actually is a pretty good looking brisket. Not super marbled, but for a store bought brisket, let's say it's good enough. I am going to, because this is probably going to burn up, unfortunately, I'm going to try to scallop this up a little bit and just get this out of here so that I have a little flatter surface to work with. And I like to kind of lift this thing up. I'm not going to say I invented this. I've been to a few classes, Gluten Booty Barbecue, Simply Marvelous, and they all kind of have their own tips that we've all poached over the years. Good mentors. But I'm trying to get off the silver skin. So, because I want that rub in direct contact with the meat. And again, like I said, my goal is to try to clean it the way I can so that I can get to a final shape and a final product that I'm going to apply my rubs and injections and such to. So right now, I'm probably going through this a little faster than I would normally, but you'll see when I get ready to apply the rubs and such before the cook that it looks pretty good. Not a ton of marbling on this guy. It's probably on the low end of prime, but it's not too bad. Alright, so try to get some of the rest of this off. Since this is going to be for my family, I'm trying not to waste too much of the meat. At a comp, I wouldn't be quite as concerned. Again, another split. I'm just going to try to scallop that out. Even that out where the other slice was. And then I want to just kind of try to even out this fat. This guy didn't leave a lot of fat, so I'm just gonna sculpt it a little bit, not a ton. Just try to bring this fat cap down. It's a little bit more even. Don't like sharp edges much, so I'm gonna kind of start boxing this off a little bit, just so the lines are a little cleaner and I don't have stuff that will poke into the foil and cause it to leak when I get it ready for the wrap. All right. Pretty close. What I want to do there. This I'll just kind of bring this down a little bit. And then I like to use scissors, and I'll cut and trim these edges so that I can have a nice rounded corners again, because I don't like sharp edges and I don't like stuff that might cause the foil wrap, which I'll show you tomorrow, to cause me to lose any of my au jus. The au jus is the magic. Don't lose that. So sculpt that and just kind of get rid of this excess stuff out, and no sharp edges. Scissors work great for that. So this is the point side and this is the flat side, and when I say that, it's the point resided over here. Usually the best meat kind of comes like in this section here. So in a competition, my goal, like if I were to be dealing with this for a comp, I would literally be spending a lot of time in this area and knowing that this, I'm not going to use this. Now, this one's kind of funky shaped, and which they all kind of tend to have their own shapes. What I would tell you is a lot of teams like to box them and make them like rectangles, and I prefer to keep them as big and wide as possible because I'm trying to keep the meat that I'm going to turn in as protected as I can. So in a perfect world, this would be a little wider up here. so that I could be kind of pulling slices from here, and then I would box these edges so that the area in between would be protected. And then I'll go through this and scrape the surface and just try to smooth out the meat a little bit. You can see this gash, another butcher treat. And I'll try to smooth that out too. Right now, so that we don't have to deal with that affecting just how the smoke's going over the surface of this brisket. For a comp, again, I'd probably spend a little more time with this trim, just trying to make it as perfect as I could. But I found, honestly, it's not the end of the world if it's not perfect, because it will be perfect once it starts kind of swelling up in the smoker and all those, that magic kind of starts working in there. So that's my flat. I do like to, on the flat end, do a notch kind of perpendicular with the grain. You can see the grains running this way, so I like to just get my notch so I know how my slices are going to go. Typically that doesn't really matter, because usually what I'll do when I go to slice this is I'm going to box it into a rectangle and it's already in line with the grain, and then I'll just work from the point end and I slice this way because I'm trying to hit perfect here. So usually by the time I get into about this zone on a good brisket, I'll know if my tenderness is over or under. But basically that's it. You know, this is point side, so I know it's protecting the flat. A little bit of fat cap, not bad. That is. And we're back. Just about to throw the briskets on. Pits are right about where I want them. Get that first hour nice and hot. And you can see now, as the rubs kind of set in, just how nice the color and everything's kind of settling in on these guys. So we are ready to go. It's been about 2 hours. You can see the color setting, bark starting to set up. I just spritz these with some water. I typically do that about every 45 minutes. All right, let's close the lid. Hey, it's Scott Sanchez, I'm back, and we're ready to slice up these briskets. So here we go. All right, let's slice this thing. So I'm gonna take this piece right here off. It's just gonna give me like a little barrier so I can slice against. You can already tell this guy is nice and tender. This side tends to be a little bit over, which is intentional. So the idea is to kind of get right around there. I want to start hitting perfect. So we'll see how this comes out. Do one more. So, but that's not so bad. For somebody at their house would be pretty happy to get brisket that tender.